Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Rush Hour. So some things to get out of the way before I get started. Yes, it's been a long break between Rush Hour just because, don't want to say it out loud, but you can kind of know what the status of the show being what it is. And basically, I knew because I went ahead of time when episode 9 aired, and I was waiting for episode 10 to air, and it didn't come up, so I looked into it, found out about the show situation, and then I was like, oh crap, they're making it a month or two break, and then they're going to show the last 4 episodes of it. So I was like, okay, whatever. It was like July 23rd, but then July came, and I was like, wait, it's the 23rd on a Saturday. It's like, no, it was on a Thursday. I thought it replaced Code Black, because Code Black is what replaced it on the lineup. So I was like, okay, it was going to pop up there, but it didn't. I just happened to randomly flipping through the satellite guide and ended up seeing a new episode of Rush Hour on at 8 o'clock on a Saturday. I was like, wait a minute, so last week was the 23rd. I was like, oh, so it is on the weekends now. It's like, okay, so that proves even more so that the show's in the situations. But nevertheless, the point I'm trying to get across is this is being filmed now. So subsequently, since I'm recently finding that out, I went back and watched this week's episode, obviously, because I'm here talking about it. But, I will be continuing this until, the final episode. And I will, so these will most likely go up on Sundays from now on, just to kind of throw that out there, let you know. I know you really don't care too much about this, so, getting right into the episode. Very good episode. I really like the case this week, where we have basically a guy breaking out of prison, which I thought was pretty innovative how he broke out of prison. Basically started a fire, a little bit of a riot amongst the guards and the inmates, disguised himself as a priest and got out that way. But what I liked in this case is how you find out, basically, with every twist and turn, you end up finding out that, hey, the guy's not a bad guy. He's been doing a lot of stuff to get to where he is. He's trying to make his way to LA. So he's committed some crimes along the way. I mean, the FBI is trying to hunt him down. Which, surprisingly enough, that wasn't a bigger part of this episode. It was mainly, obviously, I guess they, had to localize it and make it more focused on, this being Carter and Lee's case. But the FBI didn't have as much impact in it as you thought they would, because they are, dealing with other leads. It's like they have to follow all leads in a situation like this. But it's like you would think the FBI would be more closely tied to this situation because, escaped prisoners are their jurisdiction. So, but it's like, no, you didn't even see the FBI participate in this episode. It's like, okay, then bringing the case to Lee and Carter, and that's it. But nonetheless, you end up finding out that this guy Baker has broken out because, he ends up finding out that his family is in danger because the guy he used to work for, his basically a fixer, is this big company guy, his son, as well. The son basically hired Baker as a fix-it guy, and basically that led to him killing a particular guy, going to jail. But he basically got a lesser sentence by ratting out on the dad and the son. Dad got off because of his connection. The son wasn't so lucky. And then 4 years ago, he ended up getting killed. Wasn't that it? And ever since then, the dad's been plotting out his revenge. Because what I really liked is because they basically set it up like the dad was like, oh yeah, I was super pissed at him, blamed him for my son's death, but I came here, started this flower shop. I'm not at the height of my business like I was because of the whole everything that came out. But it's like, no, I'm here. I'm content with my life. I've made a good living for myself. But he's like, don't worry, make sure we keep an eye on Baker. He's coming soon. Now, I didn't know how to interpret it. I was thinking okay, he knows that Baker's coming after him because Baker's like, okay, he's going to kill you for whatever reason. I was like, I really don't see what this is all about. Maybe he blames you or something. Or it's like, I thought, I ended up being partway true, right, is being that I was like, okay, so while he's out there, you're going to try and go after him because you're like, this is the perfect opportunity to get him because of what he did to my son. Which, like I said, ended up being part true because basically everything was orchestrated by him because basically he was going after his wife and daughter, who he's not really known his entire life because the entire time he's been in prison is when she was born because his wife was pregnant around the time he went to jail. Basically, they kept separated not because the wife wanted to have nothing to do with him. Basically the husband made a deal like, my wife and child go into witness protection and I'll rat on this guy. So they've kept contact they kept no contact at all, not even just a minimum contact, because any contact could lead to them being, in the situation they ended up getting in this episode. It's because the daughter wrote a letter because she was like, she wanted to know her dad, after hearing so much, finally hearing the truth about him from her mom, and just like, he's a good guy, so I need to, every person wants to, like, someone who's never really known their parent, is like understandable for them to want to know that parent that's been missing in their life, no matter who they are, no matter what they've done. That's a part of you that you want to get to know, and especially finding out that necessarily he wasn't a bad guy, especially after considering, like, okay, like, he sacrificed, he did a lot to make sure that they were safe, getting them into witness protection and everything. It's kind of sad, because who would think like a single letter would be their undoing? Basically, they're keeping a watchful eye over him. They were looking for any opportunity, any weakness to come after him, and all that time they were pretty safe until that one letter went from his sister, from his daughter. I don't know what I'm talking about. And at the same time, I can't really blame that guy for wanting revenge. It's like, yes, Baker didn't directly kill his son, but in an indirect sense, by like him turning on him and getting him sent to jail, that ended up leading to him dying. But it's like, that wasn't his fault. That was just crappy circumstances. He was looking out for his family, but at the same time, it's like, you're looking out for yours. You're trying to get revenge for your son. It never really went back to it, but like, the fact is, he has such a lavish lifestyle, even though he was just selling, like, even though he owned a flower shop, I feel like he must have still been doing some illegal stuff. They never touched on it in the episode, but I can only assume he was able to like do some very illegal stuff to like afford that kind of lavish lifestyle. I mean, especially considering the fact is he got another, as in the way Lee phrased it, it's like he got a fixer to get rid of his old fixer. So that fixer being the guard from the prison Baker was being held in. Overall, very nice story. And I did like the fact is that, surprisingly enough, it never came up, but that Baker held his own against Lee. That was pretty interesting. It's like, they kind of like, it was more of like kind of a strifing around, like kind of nothing too serious, kind of exchanging some blows here and there, but nothing too serious. But it's like, he was handling his own, especially because when he jumped across the building and kind of rode, it's like going all parkour. I was like, that's pretty interesting. It's like, you don't seem like, it's just, you seem like a regular dude, and for you to be busting out kick-ass moves like that, that's crazy. That just kind of took me by surprise. Plenty of like favorite things in this episode, just kind of running through the lines. The whole Captain Cole thing, she did it twice in this episode. First, when Lee was murdered up, the fact is he's kind of got, he couldn't find the words because he didn't really understand the phrase. It's like, oh, you have a gut feeling basically about the case. And she started touching on his chest and everything. It's like, is she filling him up? Like, I think she touched his chest at first and just like, that felt good, and just kept doing it. And she did it again later after he was complimented. She's like, just dial it back a little bit. But the case is yours. And she started touching him and just kind of like, it almost looked, maybe it's just me reading too much into it. It almost looked like she walked away a little weak in the knees, just kind of like, oh, wow, you were in really good shape or something. I don't know. It's just like, I noticed that twice. I was like, I'm pretty sure she's filling him up. I noticed it the first time. I was like, maybe that's just my imagination. She touched him again in the chest and was just kind of, the second time I was like, you're definitely filling him up. And kind of going along those lines, I like the fact is, I don't know why he was kind of an asshole to her this episode. Carter was kind of a bit of a douchebag to Dee Dee. Like, he's never really liked that towards her, but I guess they were trying to amp it up this episode, how he's never really grateful, telling her thank you for all the help. She, like, all the hard work she puts in and getting him the information he needs to solve cases. Like, she pretty much is like a big contributor in him, like, solving any case that we've kind of seen him solve thus far. I mean, also considering the fact that she's his old partner, so it's kind of like, you think you'd show a little more damn respect, because you have Lee up there being extra super polite to him, and I mean to her, Dee Dee, and to Captain Cole, and it's like they kind of respond to it like, oh, they listen to him but not Carter. But it's like, you would think, Carter having the longer relationship with Dee Dee would know how to talk to her. But I don't know, I don't know. I think that was just part of him just being stupid in this episode. I did like the whole, like, when she was talking about she got the information, he's just like, oh yeah, you were batting them eyelids, you impressed him with your feminine wiles, you were just swinging that, like, basically enticing him, like, and it's just like, she's like, no, I called him on the phone and asked him. He's like, almost like, you sexist jerk, how could you just assume I do that, like objectify me. Like, they're just like, no, I'm sorry. It's just your tone made me think that you were going to say, you were affecting him with your feminine wiles. It's just kind of like, it's just like, you could just see it on her face, just like, Carter, you freaking idiot. It's like he kept messing up so much during the episode. I also like the fact is that he made such a big deal about, getting that thing that stretches so he can make sure he keeps his key. I forgot what it's actually called, but it's like reinforced material so it won't snap easily. And it's just like his keys got caught, he fell, and he was just like, whew, he was just super excited, and his keys, it finally snapped. I mean, granted, to be able to hold him as long as it did over such a distance like that in itself is impressive. And I did like the, calling back to the first episode, another pull. So I did like that. I also really like Carter's Denzel Washington impression. He's like, WWDD. I'm like, at first I was sitting there like, what is that? I know it's like, what would, but who is that? It's like, what would Denzel do? I was like, oh, he's like, Denzel, who's Denzel? He's like, wait, you don't know who Denzel is? He brought up, did he bring up the most recent movie Denzel's done? Was it The Equalizer? I was just like, which personally I haven't seen, but it's just like, I thought that was a pretty nice impression that Carter did. And I did like the fact is that, later on in the episode, when it kind of gets brought up nearing the end of the episode, no, not near, at the very end of the episode, how basically Carter got the movie Training Day and was going to show it to him. He's like, oh, I love Will Smith. He's like, wait, you're messing with me, aren't you? And they're sitting there watching the movie, and Lee can't even enjoy the movie because he's just like, he's a terrible cop. It's like, but I think it's a little funny because I have seen the movie Training Day at the very least. So it's kind of like, they're like, oh, like, he's so cool. I mean, which granted Denzel Washington is just, like, his presence in movies, he's just got that swag, right? And it's just like, they're just admiring him and stuff like that. But Lee, as a cop, is just sitting there, like, being very by the book. It's just kind of like, he's a terrible cop. He's just horrible. And it's just like, they're praising him and everything. But it's like, if anyone's ever seen the movie Training Day, you're like, yeah, he's a pretty bad cop. So it's kind of ironic that you're up there praising him. It's kind of understandable why Gerald would kind of praise him, but it's like, Carter, you shouldn't praise him as much. It's like, you're a good, upstanding cop. You're praising definitely a dirty cop. So, you see the kind of contradiction there. But I did love the fact that Lee was just like, man, this movie's terrible. It's, go to China, see where some real good cinema is. And just like, I can't believe he just said that. We know that really America is where movies are made, which, I'm not going to touch that. Good movies come from everywhere. That's my opinion. You can find good movies made in different places all across the world. That's my view on it, but that's just me. I also want to bring up that car test driver. Basically, when he found out, when the guy brought it up, his coworker or whatever, or boss, was basically like, yep, this guy's ID is fake. And it's just like, he was so calm when he reported that to him. It was like, yeah, and he got his ID stolen very violently. It's like, why would you say that so calmly? You would think to be like, okay, I want you to stay calm. Like, it feel like you should be a little amped up telling him to stay calm or whatever. And it's just like, the guy in the car is just kind of looking at him, and he sees Baker's knuckles, and just, you see him kind of tense up a little bit, and Baker just looks at him and just I'm not slowing down. And the guy's just like, kind of almost taking deep breaths, unbuckles himself, and just kind of rolls out the car. I won't lie, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, like, I hope he doesn't get hit by a car, that kind of comes back to bite Baker. But it's like, no, he was okay. Granted, he got pretty banged up, but I did like the fact he's sitting there lying to Carter, be like, yeah, he pushed me. He violently pushed me out of the car. Say, like, you lying sack of crap. You rolled out the car. He gave you a choice. He's like, I'm not slowing down. If you want to roll out the car, you can roll out the car. No one actually told you to. You could have stayed in the car. I'm sure you would have been fine. Granted, I don't know, maybe eventually he probably would have kicked you out himself, just because it's like, yeah, I wanted you to roll out the car, but you did, so now I've just got to physically kick you out. Don't know. Would be interesting to see how that went. But yeah, just love the fact that he sat there and lied. Now, something very serious kind of got brought up in this episode. Basically, Lee seeing the fact is that Baker's willing to do anything for his family, just like to be reunite with his daughter. It kind of got Lee thinking about Kim. The fact is that, basically we brought up the fact is that Lee is 2 years older than Kim, and that when his parents died, he had to kind of take the parental role, especially like, he had to become more of a father figure rather than a brother to Kim. And that's kind of been brought up in the past, is like he was a little stricter on her because of that, because he had to take on a responsibility of a parent to make sure she goes down the right path. And it just basically Baker's willingness to do anything for his family. And I guess it kind of got Lee thinking about his willingness to do anything for Kim. It's like, would he how far would he go to protect Kim or try to save Kim? Would he go as far as breaking the law or what? And I think that's kind of what kind of got crossing his mind. He even brought up the fact that it never made sense to him, because he's like, my dad was a well-trained cop. For him to lose control, it was like an accident that he died, but for it to be a car accident, he's like, my dad's a well-trained cop. You think, something like that would be less of an issue with him. I mean, granted, there could be extenuating circumstances, but he's like, my dad's very attentive. So it's like, how could an accident really, and we don't really, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, because it has been a while, so I don't remember the past episodes that well, because certain things have been blanked for a while. But has it ever been brought up, like, what the exact circumstances of the accident were? Was it like a collision with another car or whatever? I don't think so. It's always just been like they died in a car accident. So, plus the fact of the matter is that, Lee brings up the fact is like, oh, he could have looked into the file since becoming a cop, but the files were all burnt in a precinct fire or whatever, which, it's like that right there is telling you, yep, it's setting it up to be like, yep, Lee's parents' death wasn't an accident. There's a lot more to it. And I'm thinking maybe that's also got to do with Kim being undercover. Also, side note, let's not forget that Lee still doesn't know about that. Captain Cole does, but he doesn't. But the fact of the matter is, maybe that's also another reason why Kim decided to take this mission. Maybe the Quantal are connected to their parents' death, and this is also her way of getting revenge, obviously still without, bringing her brother into the fold. And the fact of the matter is, how I see this going down is the fact is Lee, Carter's, I don't think Lee's going to necessarily look into it. The fact is they brought it up makes it seem like, okay, someone's going to look at it, but I don't think it's going to be Lee. I think maybe Carter's going to get Dee Dee, or maybe Lee is going to get Dee Dee to help them look into it. But I get the feeling like maybe Carter's going to look into it because he wants to do something nice for Lee, and he does it, and they end up finding out some information. I don't know, like I said, the Quantal might be behind you, or the fact is that it wasn't an accident, because even the police officers only, as Lee said, only told him what he needed to know. They didn't go into a lot of details, so maybe they were covering up a lot of stuff. Like maybe it's because he was a teenager at the time of his parents dying, so, and based on the fact that his sister was 15, that made him 17 at the time, so maybe they're like, you're not quite enough of an adult to really know the extenuating circumstances around everything. Like, we'll just tell you, like, they died in an accident. So I feel like that's going to be something that pops up, maybe. Like I said, considering what the show status is, you don't know if that's something that's going to be tied up in the next 3 episodes or not. Maybe that's something that would have been tied up later on, or it would have led somewhere else, or maybe it will pop up. I don't know. We'll just have to wait to see the rest of the series. Super bummed about that, because I really do like this show. It's a very nice interpretation, adaptation of the movie. So granted, does it follow the movies beat for beat? No, because the fact of the matter is you get a little bit more adventure with them. So rather than in the movies, it's kind of like, okay, one specific case, you've seen them on a multitude of cases. So I don't know, we kind of get to delve a little more into the characters. That's kind of one of the reasons why I bring it up. I like TV shows more than movies. I feel like you get more time with a character, which can be a good thing and a bad thing, I'm sure, depending on who you ask. So, like I said earlier in the episode, I will be continuing to review the rest of this series. Like I said, because of where the show lies, I will be doing, these will be going up hopefully Sundays. So do be on the lookout for those. But till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.